Hello, my name is Nihigami, and this is going to be a quick overview about my fast pull method in ED1. So let's take a look at the armor and gear that I like to use for this method. One thing should be noted that this is a very heavily range-based setup, and that is because of the use of the mechanized chinchompas, which is at the heart of this build. So first off, I like to use full pernix with the Cinderbane gloves. And the Cinderbane gloves work well with the Weapon Poison Plus Plus to create poison damage on the mobs that you're going to be killing. On my Pernix gear, I use a wide variety of DPS perks, but also use a few defensive and utility perks that really do help and aid in this method and just overall combat in general. So first off, I like to use Absorbative 2, which reduces overall damage you take. I also like to use the perk Mobile, which reduces the cooldown of Surge by 10 seconds and helps when you're gathering all the mobs in the dungeon. Lastly, I like to use Enhanced Devoted 3, which makes your Protection Curses 100% effective for a few seconds. For my weapons and shield, I like to use my Dual Ascension crossbows, the Vengeful Kite shield because it is the ranged tier 90 shield, and the absolute heart of this build, the mechanized chinchompas. Now there is something that you should note when you're using this method and using mechanized chinchompas in general, that when you do equip them, you do want to have an offhand weapon also equipped so that you can increase the ability damage that you do with them. On my Ascension crossbows, I like to rock Precise 5 on my main hand and Aftershock 3 on my offhand. And having Aftershock 3 on the offhand works really well with the mechanized chinchompas just so you can dish out that extra AoE damage constantly. On my shield, I run Turtling 2 and Venom Blood, and that's just the perks I got when I was perking it out. Other than that, I like to use my best in slot range cape, the Amulet of Souls to increase the healing that Soul Split gives you, and the Asylum Surgeon's Ring to help conserve adrenaline so that you can maximize your defense abilities or offense abilities. Other than that, I also have the Adrenaline Urn to help preserve adrenaline when I'm not in combat. Lastly, I also keep a Luck of the Dwarves ring in my inventory for a quick teleport to the Grand Exchange, and I also bring the Demon Horn necklace just so that I can get some extra prayer points here and there. Looking at my supplies, I like to bring a Holy Overload just because it's the cheapest one out of all of them. Bring some prayer potions, a replenishment potion to get adrenaline when it's needed, a Weapon Poison Plus Plus because it works well with the Cinderbane gauntlets, and a slot for your blue charm so that your charming imp can pick them up if you have one. Other than that, I bring all the food that my inventory can hold with whatever food I like, and I like to use the Steel Titan to increase my DPS. You notice that even before I start, I already have 100% adrenaline, and actually while we are queuing up and getting ready to go into the dungeon, I'm doing whatever I can to keep it that high. So before you teleport, you have to get out of combat, and this is where the Adrenaline Urn comes into play, and it really does help in preserving adrenaline levels. So right now, all I'm doing is just finding a good dungeon. We have 2 bosses, and that works for me. This easy 10k tokens there. So the first thing that I do is, like my previous guide, I like to run and aggro these first 2 groups to unlock the first gate. And if you group them up just right, they clump together to where you can use your mechanized chinchompas just to burn them down quickly. And the more people you have doing that, the faster this whole process goes. One thing that's important to note is that if you are using mechanized chinchompas and you're kind of conscious about how much they cost, just use them, weapon switch to them when you have a threshold or any ability available that you want to use with it, and that'll work. After you kill the last one and unlock the first gate, the first thing you're going to do is start aggroing the entire dungeon. Now, this next part is where teamwork comes into play. So the moment that these 3 people start crossing the bridge, you want to tell your DPS teammates to go and kill the 2 people in front of the church. And that will unlock the church and allow you to aggro them. One quick thing to note as you're pulling this boss, if it ever does spawn, is that you do want to use anticipation before you run across him, and that will help prevent you from getting stunned like I do. So once you've wrapped around the entire dungeon and your DPS teammates have killed the 2 people in front of the church, you want to get ready to start aggroing the church and be ready to use your ultimate. And it's really important that before you get into a church to have 100% adrenaline, and if you don't have it, try to stall, use some abilities to build adrenaline, and use your replenishment potion if needed to get some extra adrenaline. Now that you've aggroed every single monster other than what's been locked behind gates in the dungeon, you're going to run up to this certain spot that I like to stand at so that all the mobs can gather around you. And then just wait for them to stop moving and for them to group up. To make it easier to hit AoE damage on them. While the mob group is starting to group together, encourage your DPS teammates to throw out a corruption shot, and that'll help them get tags on all the enemies and be sure to get experience as you're killing them, because you're going to be killing them quite fast, and if they're not careful, they may not get experience for the mobs that you kill. The first thing that you're going to do is shift from using Protect from Mage or Magic and switch over to Soul Split. The next thing after that is that you're going to go ahead and equip your Mechanized Chinchompas and your offhand Ascension Crossbow or whatever offhand weapon you're using. After that, I like to stand at the left-hand side of that staircase, which will cause the melee mobs in the back to shift forward without actually coming to you. And doing that allows you to deal more damage to more people, which also in hand allows you to have more healing without necessarily taking more damage. At this point, all you're going to be doing is just doing as much damage as you can and burning through this mob. You're going to get ready to deal a whole bunch of damage while also taking a whole lot of damage. And so what makes this whole method work is the combination of your Vampirism Aura, the Amulet of Souls, Soul Split, and the Mechanized Chinchompas. So this part of the guide is where it really does get dangerous, and it does take some practice to get good at it. Some of the most important abilities that you can use with your Mechanized Chinchompas are Corruption Shot, Snapshot, Rapid Fire, and Bombardment. And these four are really going to be the abilities that give you the most healing while also dealing the most damage. And you want to try and cycle them out as evenly as you can, because if you don't, there's going to be times where you're going to be overhealing yourself and not getting any benefit from it, while also other times where you're not doing enough damage and creating an opportunity for you to die. So try to keep that in mind and try to keep your rotations kind of even here. It's also important to note that if you do rapid fire, try to find a mob that's closer to a lot of other mobs, like in the middle, because of the way that Mechanized Chinchompas work, and also try to find someone that's higher health so that they don't die so quickly. So if you do a rapid fire on someone that has 1.5k health, they're going to die before you get any benefit or damage out of rapid fire. Once all the larger mobs are dead, go ahead and switch to your offhand and main hand weapons and start killing the last of what's left. In this particular group, I actually have a boss that's chasing me, and I always try to focus on the smaller mobs before you ever focus a boss, especially if there are healers involved, because you don't want any uber heals going to a boss while you're fighting them. All there is left to do at this point is kill the mini bosses and you're done. If you do this method correctly, you can typically close out a dungeon within 4 to 5 minutes, if not less. One of the things I like to do now is I'll actually like to group all the bosses together and chin them down as well. And that whole explanation and trying to do that is a lot harder than it sounds, but it's something you get a feel for eventually as you try and do it. Any which way, thank you for watching this video, and I hope that it helps a lot.